Everyone celebrates the day David killed a giant. Nobody talks about the years he spent alone killing lions instead. The fight everyone remembers took minutes. The fight nobody remembers took years, with no crowd watching and no reward waiting. 1 Samuel 17 verses 34 to 35 says David killed both a lion and a bear long before anyone handed him a sword against Goliath. You have been treating motivation like a spark you either feel in the moment or do not, waiting for that feeling to arrive before you commit to the discipline your calling actually requires from you. David's story does not support that assumption at all. The bravery everyone celebrates in one afternoon in a valley was built across years nobody was present to witness or applaud, in a field far from any crowd that would eventually matter. Many of you will push back on this. Good. Because this is the part of David's story that gets skipped entirely on the way to the sling, the stone, and the giant falling. Part 1. The fight that mattered most happened with no audience at all. 1 Samuel 17 verses 34 to 35. But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep in the fields for years. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it right there." This was not a single dramatic rescue that happened once and became legend on its own. The text implies a repeated pattern instead: a lion, then separately a bear, each encounter handled the exact same way, alone, in open country where no other person is ever mentioned as present to witness it. But here is what nobody told you. David was not describing a hypothetical scenario to convince Saul that he could theoretically fight Goliath if given the chance. He was recounting an actual practice that had already become routine for him as a shepherd, something he had done more than once without ceremony, recognition, or anyone recording it anywhere until this exact conversation, years after it had actually happened repeatedly out in the field. Part 2. The skill Goliath would face was forged in complete obscurity. There was no crowd cheering when David faced that lion in the open field. No king watching from a hillside with any expectation of a future king standing before him. No prophet present to declare what this small, unrecorded moment would eventually mean for an entire nation. It was simply a boy, a flock of sheep that belonged to someone else, and a wild animal that could have killed him without a single witness ever knowing what actually happened to him out there in that field. Think about that for a second. Every skill David would eventually need against Goliath, precise timing, staying calm under mortal pressure, the willingness to close the distance on something larger and more physically dangerous than himself, was already fully formed and tested before he ever stood in that valley facing a giant. Goliath did not create David's courage from nothing in that moment. Goliath simply provided the first audience large enough to finally notice a courage that had already existed quietly for years. Part 3. David's own words reveal where his confidence actually came from. 1 Samuel 17 verse 37. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Notice the precise structure of that sentence. David does not say he simply feels ready in this particular moment. He does not appeal to a sudden surge of adrenaline or confidence rising up inside him right before the fight. He cites an actual track record instead, one built entirely in seasons nobody else was measuring, recording, or celebrating at the time it was actually happening to him. Now stop. Many of you will push back on this. Good. Because most people treat readiness as something you suddenly discover in the one big moment itself, rather than something you slowly accumulate across seasons that felt too small and too unwitnessed to matter at all while they were actually happening to you. Part 4. Saul's armor reveals what David's years had already made unnecessary. 1 Samuel 17 verses 38 to 39. Saul dressed David in his own tunic, putting a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around, because he was not used to them. "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off before ever entering the valley. David rejected the armor not out of arrogance or a rejection of caution, but because his actual years of preparation had already trained him for a completely different kind of readiness. One built through countless hours of repetition with a sling, not through borrowed equipment he had never once tested in an actual moment of danger. Let that land. The years spent alone in the field had not just built raw physical skill in his hands and arm. They had built a specific, thoroughly tested confidence in one particular method, a confidence Saul's armor could never replace no matter how much visible protection it appeared to offer to anyone watching from the outside. Part 5. The moral tension this preparation exposes about how we measure a man. Tell me honestly in the comments, are you in your shepherd years right now, doing the unwitnessed work nobody ever applauds or even notices, or are you already in your Goliath moment, facing the one fight everyone around you will actually see and remember? Both seasons matter completely and equally, but most men only value the second one, treating the first as wasted time or delay rather than recognizing it as the entire foundation making the second one survivable in the first place. Part 6. The victory in the valley was simply the visible end of an invisible process. 1 Samuel 17 verse 50. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, without even a sword in his hand at the moment of victory. The stone that killed Goliath was thrown by an arm trained across years of repeated practice. Nobody had been scoring or celebrating at the time it actually mattered most. The 5 smooth stones he selected from the stream that morning were chosen with the exact same calm precision he had already used against a lion and a bear, applied now on a stage finally large enough for everyone watching to notice what had quietly been true for years. You have been waiting to feel motivated before you commit to the discipline your calling actually requires from you, treating the quiet, unwitnessed years as delay rather than as the actual preparation making your future public moment survivable at all. David did not become brave the day the giant finally appeared in front of him. He simply brought years of unseen practice, built in a field where nobody applauded him, into a valley finally large enough for someone else to notice what had already been true about him for a long time before that single afternoon. If you want to see what it looks like when someone finally names the quiet failures nobody warns you about until the cost fully compounds, watch the video on screen now. 5 signs separate the man who merely looks biblical from the man who actually is one. Type in the comments right now whether you are in your shepherd years or your Goliath moment today, and trust that the quiet field is not wasted time at all.